Hello and welcome back. You're probably watching this on a separate video. You might be watching this on the same video. I've managed to splice these two videos to go. Or, for that matter, there might be a video of the previous scene that we've just done that went horribly wrong and my internet cut out and threw us out of the room. But we're back. Anyway, we're going to be going from Scene 7 or Act 3, Scene 1 with these wonderful readers in the room who, if you wanted them to introduce themselves, you can watch the previous video that hopefully still exists. If it doesn't exist, never mind. Look in the show description. There will be lists of who everybody is, and we'll mention each other's names as we go along. It'll be fine. Hi, I'm Robert, and these are all the other people. Wave! Without further ado, we're going to dive into Act 3, Scene 1 yes, what's the title of the play? It's The Fair Maid of the Exchange, still. Fingers crossed. So, running Scene 7, discovers boy in a shop cutting square parchments. To him enter Phillis.
Why, how now, sirrah? Can you find naught to do but waste the parchment in this idle sort?
I do but what my mistress gave in charge.
Your mistress? In good time then, sir, it seems. Your duty cannot stoop but to her lure. Sir, I will make you know that, in her absence, you shall account to my demand. Your mistress and your mistress's will is this, and thus you'll do, but answer to the motion I have made. Or you shall feel you have another mistress now. Speak, why, when, I say.
Indeed, I know your glory, your pride's at full in this authority, but were it not for modest bashfulness, and that I dread a base contentious name, I would not be a byword to the exchange, for every one to say, myself going by, yon goes a vassal to authority.
You would not, sir. Had I the yard in hand, I'd measure your pate for this delusion, and by my maiden chastity I swear, unless...
Reaches for the yard and the boy stays her hand.
What? Unless I know your wilfulness. These words are but to show the world your humour. I often used to square these parchment pieces without occasion. I'm sure you are not writing the lawns you lately bought of Master Brooks, a new come home, brought in by the merchant servant. I know you are short-membered, but not so short of your remembrance that this is news to you.
Your best to brave me in a taunting humour. Will please you ope the door? Will please you ope the door? Where's Ursula? Oh, here's good stuff. My back's no sooner turned, but she must needs be gadding. And where, I pray?
She's gone to Master Palmer's on t'other side.
On great occasion, sir, I doubt it not.
She sits and works in the shop. Enter Master Richard Gardiner, booted, and Master William Bennet, two gentlemen at one end of the stage.
Kind Dick, thou wilt not be unmindful of my duty to that same worthy arts master, Lionel Barnes.
My love, sweet will, hath chained it to my memory.
Then, with this kind embrace, I take my leave, wishing thou wert as safe arrived at Cambridge as thou art at this present near the Exchange.
And well remembered, kind Will Bennet. Others' affairs made me oblivious of mine own. I pray thee, go to the Exchange. I have certain bands and other linen to buy. Prithee accompany me.
With all my heart.
Sure, this is a beauteous, gallant walk. Were my continual residence in London, I should make much use of such a pleasure. Methinks the glorious virgins of this square give life to dead-struck youth. Oh, heavens!
Oh, how now, Dick?
By my sweet hopes of an hereafter bliss, I never saw a fairer face than this. Oh, for acquaintance with so rich a beauty.
Take thy occasion. Never hadst thou better.
Have at her, then.
What lack you, gentlemen?
Faith, nothing had I thee, for in thine eye all my desires I see.
My shop, you mean, sir? There you may have choice of lawns, or cambrics, ruffs well wrought, shirts, fine falling bands of the Italian cutwork, ruffs for your hands, waistcoats wrought with silk, nightcaps of gold, or such like wearing linen, fit for the chapman of whate'er degree.
Faith, virgin, in my days I have worn and outworn much, yea, many of these golden necessaries, but such a gallant beauty, or such a form I never saw. nor never wore the like. Faith be not then unkind, but let me wear this shape of thine, although I buy it dear.
What? Hath the tailor played his part so well that with my gown you are so far in love?
Mistake not, sweet, your garment is the cover that veils the shape and pleasures of a lover.
That argues then you do not see my shape. How comes it when you are in love with it?
A garment made by cunning artsmen's skills hides all defects that nature's swerving hand hath done amiss, and makes the shape seem pure. If then it grace such lame deformity, it adds a greater grace to purity.
Oh, short-lived praise. Even now I was as fair as anything, now foul and nothing, dissembling men. What maid will credit them?
How misconstruction leads your thoughts awry.
Prithee, Dick, have done. Think on thy journey.
You counsel well, sir. I think the gentleman comes but to whet his wit, and 'tis but need, 'tis blunt enough, he may ride far upon it.
Marry Gip Minx?
A fine word in a gentleman's mouth. To a good your back were towards me, there can I read better content than in the face of lust.
Now you display your virtues as they are.
What am I? You cipher, parenthesis of words, stall troubler, prater, what sit I here for naught? Bestow your lustful courtship on your minions, this place holds none. You and your companion get you down the stairs, or I protest I'll make this squared walk too hot for you. Had you been as you seemed in outward shew, honest gentlemen, such terms of vile abuse had not been proffered to virginity, but swains will quickly show their base descent.
This is no place for brawls, but if it were, your impositions are more than I would bear.
How come she's a woman? I prithee leave her.
Exeunt Gardiner and Bennet.
Nay, sure maid, unless her thoughts deceive her. God speed you well, sirrah, boy.
Anon.
Go to the starchers for the suit of ruffs, for Master Bowdler's bands and Master Golding's shirts. Let's have a care to please our proved friends. As for our strangers, if they use us well, for love and money, love and wear will sell.
And exit Phillis and Boy. It's an interesting scene of random people. Again, going to throw in a few spoilers. We're not going to see Gardiner or Bennet ever again. They are just literally random customer people, or random passerby people, and it's an interesting exposition of the kind of low-level sexual harassment that Phillis presumably gets every single day and is really used to. And it's, this doesn't serve explicitly any kind of major plot function. There are a couple of references to things that are coming up, but they're not actually essential. They're sort of reminding us of mercantile relationships between Bowdler and Golding, etc. But yeah, this is doing interesting work. Lynn, then Alan.
Yeah, in a way, it's excitable because we don't see those men again, but it's a really interesting insight into Phyllis's character. It's kind of easy to have an ingenue who's just beautiful and her father's wealthy, and so everybody wants Phyllis, but she's also really smart and really sassy and stands up for herself. And it's like, no, I don't want you. I know what I want. I know what I want. I want what I want. And so she has, she's smart. She's got agency. She's street smart. So it's I think a great exposition of her character. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here, even if it doesn't serve the plot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a structural sense of it. It's between two Frank scenes, so that might be that's partly why it's there. But I think it serves a thematic function, if not a plot function in that sense. Alan, and then Lois.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting one, we got Ursula name checked again, who was the other party in the opening scene, which we were having difficulty understanding the point of. But the other thing that struck me was that effectively Phyllis has entered her friend's shop and then started bossing her employee about and seeming to get away with it, which I must admit I did find an interesting sort of role reversal.
Lois.
Yeah, I think she, I don't know who her friend is, but I think she's in charge of the shop when her friend isn't there. And so she feels she has a perfect right. And she's very sensitive about status, obviously, and whether this boy is prepared to take orders from her or not. I mean, she is extremely sharp. It strikes me as interesting. So is Moll. I mean, the minute any man speaks to them, they get really quite hostile. And I think it probably is partly as a result of what Robert said, that they're just used to men being aggressive and particularly being sexually aggressive. I mean, a lot would depend on how you play this. In some ways, it looks to me as if she's being terribly sharp with this guy the minute he opens his mouth. But on the other hand, if he comes leering up to her with a, I'm God's gift to woman expression, then of course you can understand it.
Alan.
Yeah, I mean, her reaction to the customers who are basically posh boys down from Cambridge or whatever, I didn't find objectionable. It was her reactions with the boy I felt was OTT. You're only a young whippersnapper, do what I bloody tell you, which is unacceptable on many levels.
That said, she has met him before, so maybe there's a history there about the way people work with the younger apprentices, or whatever the boy represents in this particular household.
Yeah, we've seen this sort of thing before. I mean, I think Jane Shore, for example, was quite sharp with apprentices. I mean, there seems to be this idea that you really got to put people in their place.
Yeah, but that was with her own apprentices from recollection, not with somebody else's.
Yeah, but she has been put in some sort of position of authority here. I mean, it's not, Alexandra.
Yeah, I think that's the point. I think it's to represent, in a way that we perhaps don't find palatable, her position of authority, and there's a we've talked about this before, that there's a difference between having agency in one's own life, so her being able to just rebuff the advances of the random dudes, and having authority in a situation and having power in a situation. And so I think perhaps the scene is trying to establish where in the social order she sits. She's above the sort of servant class, and we're supposed to find her more valuable because of that. And also she's, not some doormat that will just take any crap that these gents throw at her.
Anyway, we will return now to the primary, or one of the primary plot lines, as we'll go to Act 3, Scene 2, or Scene 8. And it's somewhere else nearby. The cripple discovered at work. Enter Frank, disguised still as a porter.
Now, fortune be my guide. This is the shop, and in good time the cripple is at work. Godspeed you, sir.
Welcome, honest friend. What's thy will with me?
I would entreat you read a letter for me.
With all my heart. I know the maid to whom it is directed.
I know you do, cripple, better than you think.
I pray you, what gentleman writ the same?
Sir, a gentleman of good learning, and my friend. Oh, to say the truth, 'twas written for myself, being somewhat overtaken with fond love, as many men be, sir.
Why art thou persuaded, or hast thou any hope, so beautiful a virgin as she is, of such fair parentage, so virtuous, so gentle, kind, and wise as Phillis is, that she will take remorse on such base stuff? I think not so, but let's see. What's thy name?
Trusty John, men call me, sir.
How comes it then your blinded secretary hath writ another name unto the letter, your devoted Anthony Golding? But sure this letter is no right of thine. Either thou foundst the same by happy chance, or being employed as a messenger, placed legerdemain with him that sent the same. Wherefore the maid, well known unto myself, I will reserve the letter to her use. that she, if by the name herein set down, she know the gentleman that doth wish her well, she may be grateful for his courtesy.
Nay, then I see I must disclose myself. Sir, might I build upon your secrecy, I would disclose a secret of import.
Assure thyself I will not injure thee.
Then, Cripple, no, I am not what I seem, but took this habit to deceive my friend indeed, but yet my cruel foe. Foe to my good, my friend in outward show. I am no porter, as I seem to be, but younger brother to that Antony, and to be brief, I am in love with Phillis, which my two elder brothers do affect. The one of them seeks to defeat the other. Now, if that I, being their younger brother, could gull them both by getting of the wench, I would requite it with love's recompense. Cripple, thou once did promise me thy love, when I did rescue thee on Mile End Green. Now is the time. Now let me have thy aid to gull my brothers of that beauteous maid.
Sir, what I promised I will now perform. My love is yours, my life to do you good, which to approve, follow me, but in all, will gull your brothers in the wench and all.
Say'st thou so, friend? For that very word, my life is thine. Command my hand and sword.
Then let me see the letter. It should seem you undertook to carry it from your brother to the maid.
I did, and from my brother Ferdinand, this other letter to the same effect.
Well, list to me and follow my advice. You shall deliver neither of them both, but frame 2 letters of your own invention, letters of flat denial to their suits. Give them both to your brothers as from Phillis, and let each line in either letter tend to the dispraise of both their features. And the conclusion I would have set down, a flat resolve, bound with some zealous oath, neither to yield to either of their suits, and if this sort not well to your content, condemn the cripple.
Oh, but this will ask much time, and they by this time look for my return.
Why then myself will fit you presently. I have the copies in my custody of sundry letters to the same effect.
Of thy own writing?
My own, I assure you.
Faith, thou hast robbed me, thou hast robbed some sonnet book or other, and now wouldst make me think they are thy own.
Why, thinkst thou that I cannot write a letter, ditty, or sonnet with a judicial phrase, as pretty, pleasing, and pathetical as the best Ovid imitating dunce in all the town?
I think thou canst not.
Yea, I'll swear I cannot. Yet, sirrah, I could coney catch the world, make myself famous for a sudden wit, and be admired for my dexterity, were I disposed.
I prithee, how?
Why, thus. There lived a poet in this town, if we may term our modern writers poets, sharp-witted, bitter-tongued, his pen of steel. His ink was tempered with the biting juice and extracts of the bitterest weeds that grew. He never wrote but when the elements of fire and water tilted in his brain. This fellow, ready to give up his ghost to Lucia's bosom, did bequeath to me his library, which was just nothing but rolls and scrolls and bundles of cast wit, such as durst never visit Paul's churchyard. Amongst them all, I happened on a quire or 2 of paper filled with songs and ditties, and here and there a hungry epigram. These I reserve to my own proper use, and, paternoster-like, have conned them all. I could now, when I am in company at alehouse, tavern, or an ordinary, upon a theme make an extemporal ditty, or one at least should seem extemporal, out of the abundance of his legacy, that all would judge it and report it to be the infant of a sudden wit, and then I were an admirable fellow.
'Tis this were a piece of cunning.
I could do more, for I could make inquiry where the best witted gallants used to dine, follow them to the tavern, and there sit in the next room with a clever head and with a calf's head and brimstone, and overhear their talk, observe their humors, collect their jests, put them into play, and tire them too with payment, to behold what I have filched from them. This could I do, but oh, for shame that men should so arraign their own fee-simple wit for such verbal theft. Yet men there be that have done this and that, and more by much more than most of them.
But to what purpose, Cripple, to these letters?
I have them ready for you. Here they be. Give these to your brothers. Say that Phillis delivered them with frowns, and though her name be not subscribed, which may not well be done, it may perhaps give them occasion to think them scorn so much grace and favor. 'Tis done. Return to me, and let me know the occurrence of this practice as they grow. And so farewell. I can no longer stand to talk with you. I have some work in hand.
And exit Cripple.
Farewell, mad Cripple. Now, Frank Golding, fly to put in practice this new policy. But soft, here comes the maid. I will essay to plead my own love in a stranger way.
And enter Phillis and Fiddle.
By a leave, sir.
Porter, I'm not for you. You see, I'm perambulating before a female.
I would crave but a word with you.
Speak in time then, Porter, for otherwise I do not love to answer you. Be as brief as you can, good Porter.
I pray you, sir, what gentlewoman is this?
Certes, Porter, I serve a gentleman. That gentleman is father to this gentlewoman. This gentlewoman is a maid. This maid is fair, and this fair maid belongeth to the exchange, and the exchange hath not the like fair maid. Now, Porter, put this all together and tell me what it spells.
I promise you, sir, you have posed me.
Then you are an ass, Porter. 'Tis the fair maid of the exchange.
Her name, I pray you, sir.
Her name, Porter, requires much poeticality in the subscription, and no less judgment in the understanding. Her name is Phillis. Not Phillis, that same dainty lass, that was beloved of a minty ass. Not Phillis that she doted on, that comely like youth demandeth on. But this is Phillis, that most strange, Phillis, the flower of the exchange.
What? Do anything with me?
Yes, mistress. Since by chance I meet you here, I'll tell you, though it not concerns myself, what I this morning saw. There is a gentleman, one Master Golding, the youngest of three brothers, they call him Frank. This man lies very sick. I, being at his house perchance, inquired what his disease was of a servant there, who said the doctors cannot tell themselves, but in his fits he ever calls on love, and prays to love for pity, and then names you, and then names love again, and then calls Phillis, and sometimes starts and would forsake his bed, and being asked whither, says he would go to Phillis. My business called me hence, but I heard say his friends do mean to entreat you to take pains to visit him, because they do suppose the sick man loves you, and thence his sickness grows.
Porter, is this true? Or art thou hired to this? I pray thee tell me.
Mistress, not hired. My name is Trusty John. If I delude you, never trust me more.
I thank thee, Porter, and thank love withal, that thus hath wrought the tyrant Golding's fall. He once scorned love, jested at wounded hearts, challenged almighty beauty, railed at passion, and is he now caught by the eyes and heart? Now, by Diana's milk-white veil, I swear, the goddess of my maiden chaste desires, I am as glad of it as glad may be, and I will see him, if but to laugh at him, and torture him with jests. Fiddle along. When we return, if they do send for me, I'll arm myself with flouts and cruelty.
Porter, we commit you. If you be a crafty knave and lay in the wind for advantage, you have your answer. Mark her last words. I'll arm myself with flouts and cruelty.
And exit Phillis and Fiddle.
I'll arm myself with flouts and cruelty. Will you so, Phillis? What a state am I in? Why, I, of all, am farthest from her loves. Blood, if I should now take conceit in this, forsake with love indeed, were not my estate most lamentable? Ay, by this hand, were it. Well, heart, if thou wilt yield, look to thyself, thou wilt be tortured well. What remedy?
Enter Anthony.
Here comes my brother Anthony. I am for him.
Porter, what news? Spake you with Phillis?
Ay, too late to my grief. Spoke with her, sir. Faith, I think I have. Here is a letter for you, and by that you shall judge if I did speak with her now. Cripple, shall we prove your learned wit?
Zoons, am I mad? Or is she mad that writ this? I'll read it o'er again. Sir, I did never like you. I do not now think well of you, and I will never love you. I choose my husband with my eyes, and I have seen some especial fault in you, as the colour of your hair, the elevating of your head to an effective proportion, as if you fainted for want of air, and stood in that manner to suck it into your nose. Your neck is too long, and, to be short, I like no part in or about you, and the short and the long, boy, is, that I will never love you, and I will never marry but one I love, not yours, but her own. Blank. I am struck blank, and blind, and mad withal. Here is a flat denial to my suit, a resolution never to be won. What shall I do? Assist me, God of love. Instruct me in thy school tricks. Be my guide out of this labyrinth of love and fear, unto the palace of fair Phillis's favour. I have it. I will intimate her mother in my behalf, with letters and with gifts. To her I'll write to be my advocate. Porter, farewell. There's for thy pains. Thy profit by this toil passeth my gains.
Exit Anthony.
You have your answer, and a kind one too. Cripple, I'll make thee crutches of pure silver for this device. Thou hast a golden wit. Now if my brother Ferdinand were here to read his absolution. Here he comes.
Enter Ferdinand.
Brother?
Frank, what? Hast thou given the letter to her hand? And stayed my brother Anthony withal?
I have done both, and more than that, behold, here is an answer to your letter, brother.
Oh, Frank, I will love thee while I live for this.
Scarce when you read what their container is.
Gallant that write for love. If you had come yourself, you might perchance have sped. I do not counsel you neither to come yourself, unless you leave your head at home, or wear a vizard, or come backwards. For I never look you in the face, but I am sick. And so, praying God to continue my health by keeping you from me, I leave you. Oh, unkind answer to a lover's letter. Let me survey the end once more. For I never look you in the face, but I am sick. And so praying God to continue me in health by keeping you from me. Is she so far from yielding? Is this fort of her chaste love yet so impregnable? What shall I do? This is the furthest way, a labor of impossibilities, the way to weep. I will once again challenge the promise that her father made me. To him I'll write, and he, I know, will plead my love to Phillis, and so win the maid.
Exit Ferdinand.
Farewell, poor tortured heart. Was ever known two loving brothers in such misery? Let me consider of my own estate. What profit do I reap by this delusion? Why, none.
I am as far from Phillis' heart as when she first did wound me with her eyes.
Cripple, to thee I come. 'Tis thou must be my counsellor in this extremity.
And exit Frank. And what ends is effectively three little mini scenes, though Frank sort of runs the gamut through all of them. It's interesting. He's taken out one rival who then decides to go to the mother of Phillis, and the other one, having been taken out of contention, goes to the father. But of course, it's not getting Frank anywhere because she has basically just told him to his face, not knowing that she was doing it to his face. Oh God, yeah, I'll just torment him if he thinks he's in love with me. And he's sort of going, well, maybe that's as good as it gets. There's some sick burns in there. Your neck is too long. I did. There was someone who heard being shouted at in the street once, of just going, "Your arms are too long," and I never thought of that being an effective insult. But weirdly, that kind of thing actually probably hurts quite a lot. And all the stuff about wear a mask, cover your face, walk backwards, because I am sick if I look at your face. Yeah, ow. But yeah, there's that unit of action with the two brothers, the unit of action with Phillis, and also the unit of action with the Cripple, which seems to be doing all sorts of stuff. Which seems to be, that feels like there's little digs and satires in there, doesn't it? It feels like or autobiographical, of just saying when he's talking about sitting in a tavern and writing down what people are saying and turning it into a play and then selling it back to those same people. That feels like something this particular author probably actually does, and that feels quite real. And then also other references to other people as well. So there's possibly a lot to unpack and pick out of that. Thoughts in the room? I've spoken for a lot. Who was waving first? Was Briony raving at the beginning? I think you were. Briony, Aliki, Alan, then Lois. Oh.
I just wanted to voice my admiration for those beautifully written savage letters. They were fantastic.
Yeah, they're one to use for. Just put them in to set them aside for future use. It has to be said. Aliki.
Apart from the cleverness of two letters not by Phillis delivered to people, and the thing that Phillis actually said in person delivered to somebody she doesn't know to be the person she's insulting, which is fun. I really kind of wanted to point out the whole business with the Cripple and Frank, where Frank says, "How are you going to write all this stuff so quickly? You must have stolen somebody else's words." And the Cripple says, "No, absolutely not. Totally mine. They were given to me by somebody when he died."
Stealing for a gift.
Yeah, and it's a really weird story to be telling, as we said.
I'm really curious whether that's going to be a gun on the mantle, whether that ends up being a lie and actually he is super clever, or it's just something the playwright put in to sort of rationalize, or yeah.
You know, sometimes what these, maybe it's the equivalent of buying up a storage locker and just this is what you found. Alan.
Yeah, I may just be because we've recently done two of the plays from the Wars of the Theatres with Poetaster and Satyromastix, but I did just wonder whether Cripple was having a dig at Johnson in some ways, the Ovid-like thing, because Johnson obviously admired himself as a potential Ovid of art of his period. And there seemed to be one or two other references which could be interpreted in a similar way.
It might, it absolutely might be. It might also be more broad and picking up more figures than that. But the timeline just about fits, I think, off the top of my head. So it's possible. Lois.
Yeah, I think it is vaguely related to the Wars of the Theatres. I mean, there is a reference to humors, among other things. And this idea of somebody going around and just sort of picking up good lines from other people and humors and so on. I mean, people were often accused of doing that. Oscar Wilde was later on getting all these witty remarks from other people. And that seems quite possible. It's curious, really, because one does wonder whether, why else would the Cripple make up this story? Why couldn't he just say, "Oh, I can scribble a letter," or somebody did leave an angry letter with me once, or something? it seems as if it's got to be in there to be part of this general discussion. And I think there's a reference in some play, rather, to somebody who has blank, letters with blanks in them to insert names wherever needed and so on.
Yeah, I mean, because you're right, it's sort of a weirdly laborious bit of business otherwise, unless it's doing something that we can only sort of hint at from a side. Alexandra, then Lynn.
Yes, I just wanted to state something that we'd been kind of talking about when the recording got interrupted, which is that it doesn't so far, it doesn't seem to be taking itself very seriously, and on the other hand, it seems to reference a lot of other works or other authors, or So the thing about stealing lines from random places, the play actually does it. The thing about how the not epigrams, how the scrolls and the rolls that were bequeathed to this person, how they would have been compiled, and it seems that and that they're not worth printing, and they're overheard. He takes down extemporal ditties based on what people say. This all seems like, well, again, because we've just done stuff about the wars of the theatres, it does seem like digs at other people, at other authors, but also I wonder whether whole scenes might be digs at other authors or at other pieces of work, at a sort of I think Lois mentioned the Spanish tragedy, and the idea of, for an audience, of recognizing how this would work, and then rather than presenting it as a straight serious scene, it's sort of, how this will happen, it's the three boys, and then the youngest is the one that gets the girl, and so whether there's an ulterior motive.
Lynn.
So yeah, I mean, the critique here, it's kind of hard to read because lots of people kept commonplace books. You have a little book, it was blank when you bought it, and you write down clever little things that you hear or read that you might want to reuse in your discourse, either spoken or in letters, or if you were an author, in your writing. And when things were published, they often had what the writer or publisher thought of as clever or well articulated ideas in italics. So it's like, here's something you might want to put in your commonplace book. Like, here, basically plagiarize me. And that was a common practice, and it wasn't stigmatized. It was what people did. It's like, something clever, and it makes around, it turns into a meme, Yeah.
Or they hope it turns into a meme.
Yeah,
I mean, we've got a few neoclassical plays that we've done that are sort of coming around about here, where there's whole sections, pages worth of stuff that's sort of marked in a similar way, and you're going, you're trying a bit hard, mate. You're basically trying to say the whole book's a meme. It doesn't work that way.
So this idea that Cripple is doing, so Cripple's not doing something what I was transgressive. He's just kind of taken it to a level that that most people, it's kind of, it's different in scale, not in kind, from a very common cultural practice.
I mean, if there is satire going on here, and there's no absolute guarantee that there is, it does feel like there is. It is so far very light. I mean, that's the closest we got to a reasonably pointed little sequence, and it's only a couple of speeches of stuff referring to sort of writing practice at the time. I don't know how much the rest of the text is doing that, or potentially doing that. It's very difficult for us to tell, of course, but it does feel like there isn't so much a specific beef in the way that we've had in other exchanges, just more a general, oh yeah, I feel like putting this bit in here, and seems to have got away with it because it was also quite fun and quite enjoyable, and that seemed to work. Anyway, we need to move on. We got one more scene to do. Act 3, Scene 9, or running scene, Scene 3, or running scene 9. Enter Cripple, Bowdler, and Bernard.
Sirrah Bowdler, what makes thee in this merry vein?
Ah, Lord Third, your most elevated humour to be merry, to be concise, set up a collar and look thus with a double chin like Diogenes peering over his tub is too cynical. the sign of melancholy, and indeed the mere effect of a salt room.
You would think this gentleman's yesterday distemperature should breed such motions. I think it be restorative to activity. I never saw a gentleman caper so excellent as he did last night.
Mean you me, sir?
Your own self by this hand.
You gull me not?
How gull you? Methinks a man so well reputed of, so well commended for your qualities in school of nimble activeness and places where divinest choristers warble enchanting harmony to such as think there is no heaven on earth but theirs, and knowing yourself to be the genius of the spectators and the audience's hearts, you wrong your worthy self intolerably to think our words savor of flattery.
Sir, dog, how didst thou like my last caper and turn of the toe?
Oh, before God, passing well.
I know his worship made it. 'Tis so excellent.
It was my yesterday's exercise.
And after the working of your purgation, was it not?
What purgation, you filthy cur?
After the purging of your brain, sir.
Be still, dog, bark not. Though by misfortune I was last night somewhat distempered, I will not be upbraided. 'Twas no more but to refine my wit. But tell me truly, how dost thou like my caper?
Far better than I can commend it.
Now, as I am a gentleman, my tutor was not witting of the same, and in my opinion will do excellent. This air here is a most eloquous air for the memory. I could spend a third part of my arms in silver to be encountered by some good wit or other.
What say you to your sweetheart, Moll?
Peace, Cripple, silence, name her not. I could not endure the career of her wit for a million. She is the only she-Mercury under the heavens. Her wit is all spirit, that spirit fire, that fire flies from her tongue, able to burn the radix of the best invention. In this element, she is the abstract and brief of all the eloquence since the incarnation of Tully. I tell thee, Cripple, I'd rather encounter Hercules with blows than Mulberry with words. Yet, by this light, I am horribly in love with her.
Enter Mulberry.
Ooh, see where she comes. Oh, excellent.
Now have I no more blood than a bulrush.
How now, what ail you, sir?
What's the matter, man?
See, that glorious angel doth approach. What shall I do?
She is a saint indeed. Zoons, to her, court her, win her, wear her, wed her, and bed her too.
Oh, I would it were come to that. I win her. By heaven, I'm not furnished of a courting phrase to throw at a dog.
Why, no, but at a woman you have. Oh, sir, seem not so doltish now. Can you make no fustian? Ask her if she'll take a pipe of tobacco.
It will offend her judgment, pardon me.
But hear you, sir, reading so much as you have done, do you not remember one pretty phrase to scale the walls of a fair wench's love?
I never read anything but Venus and Adonis.
Well, that's the very quintessence of love. If you remember but a verse or two, I'll pawn my head, goods, lands, and all. 'Twill do.
Oh, why then, have at her. Fondling, I say, since I have hemmed thee here within the circle of this ivory pale, I'll be a park.
Hands off, fond sir.
And thou shalt be my dear. Feed thou on me, and I will feed on thee, and love shall feed us both.
Feed you on woodcocks, I can fast a while.
Vouchsafe, thou wonder, to alight thy steed.
Shit. I lost my place.
I was like, that's not what the cripple says.
Yeah.
Vouchsafe, thou wonder, to alight thy steed.
Sorry.
Take heed, she's not on horseback.
It's in the chat.
Yeah, it doesn't help me if I can't find the page.
No, I mean, the whole line is in the chat.
Oh,
Still looking
yeah,
for the page.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, excellent. She's the same sins indeed. Okay.
Vouchsafe, thou wonder, to alight thy steed.
No, we're still not there yet. It's all
Yeah.
right.
But I would like to officially.
JP, she's not on horseback.
Why, then she's alighted. Come, sit thee down where never serpent hisses, and being set, I'll smother thee with kisses.
Why, is your breath so hot? Now, God forbid I should buy kisses to be smothered.
Mean you me? You gull me not?
No, no, poor Bowdler, thou dost gull thyself. Thus must I do to shadow the hid fire that in my heart doth burn with hot desire. Oh, I do love him well, whatever I say, yet I will not myself self-love bewray. If he be wise, he'll sue with good take heed. Bowdler, do so, and thou art sure to speed. I will fly hence to make his love the stronger, though my affection must lie hid the longer. What, Master Bowdler, not a word to say?
No, by my troth, if you stay here all day.
Why, then I'll bear the bucklers hence away.
What, Master Bowdler, have you let her pass unconquered?
Why, what could I do more? I looked upon her with judgment. The strings of my tongue were well in tune. My embraces were in good measure, my palm of a good constitution. Only the phrase was not moving, as, for example, Venus herself, with all her skill, could not win Adonis with the same words. Oh, heavens, was I so fond then to think that I could conquer Mulberry? Oh, the natural fluence of my own wit had been far better. Good evening, good fellow.
God give you time of day. Pardon me, gallant. I was so near the middle that I knew not which hand to take.
A very good conceit.
And yet, because I will be sure to give you a true salutation. Cripple, como de volis? Good morrow, Cripple. Good morrow, Master Barnett. Master Bowdler. Buenas noches, as they say. Good night. And thus you have heard my manner of salutation.
You are very eloquent, sir. But Fiddle, what's the best news abroad?
The best news? I know not, sir. But the newest news is most excellent, i' faith.
Prithee, let's hear it.
Why, this it is. The sergeants are watching to arrest you at Master Berry's suit.
Woods, where?
Nay, I know not where. Alas, sir, there is no such matter. I did but say so much to make you warm the handle of your rapier. But Master Bowdler, I have good news for you.
Oh, let me hear it, my sweet russeting.
How russeting?
Aye, my little apple John.
You are a...
What?
You are a... Oh, that I could speak for indignation.
Nay, what am I?
You are a pippin monger to call me russeting or apple John.
Sirrah russeting? I'll have your head off.
You pippin monger. I'll cut off your legs and make you travel so near the Mother Earth that every boy shall be high enough to steal apples out of thy basket. Calling me rusting?
Nay, be friends, be friends.
As I'm a gentleman, Cripple, I meant him no harm, but the name of russeting to Master Fiddle, that many times travels under the arm in velvet, but for the most part in leather, trussed with calfskin points. 'Tis most tolerable not to be endured. Flesh and blood cannot bear it.
Come, all shall be well.
Fiddle, give me thy hand. A plague on thee, thou knowest well I love thee.
Say you so? Why then, anger, avoid the room. Melancholy, march away. Collar to the next chamber, and here's my hand. I'm yours to command. From this time forth, your very mortal friend and loving enemy, Master Fiddle.
Now, tell us what is the news you had for me.
Oh, the sweet news. Faith, sir, this it is, that I was sent to the Cripple from my young mistress. Master Cripple, You know, I have spent some time in idle words. Therefore, be you compendious, and tell me if my mistress' handkerchief be done or no.
Fiddle, 'tis done, and here it is. Commend me to thy mistress.
After the most humble manner I will. And so, gentlemen, I commit you all. You, Cripple, to your shop. You, sir, to a turn-up and a dish of capers. And lastly you, Master Bernard, to the tuition of the counter-keeper. There's an item for you, and so, farewell.
Exit Fiddle.
Master Bowdler, how like you this humor?
By this light, I had not thought the clod had so nimble a spirit. But Cripple, farewell. I'll to Moll Barry. Come, Bernard, along with me.
Farewell, sweet seniors both. Farewell, farewell.
Exeunt Cripple, Bowdler, Bernard, and, well, apparently Moll, but who left ages ago. Okay, so, yeah, we've got, again, a lot going on here. We've got the three chaps together again doing their witty bantering that we had earlier in the play, and then we sort of get to plot of going, oh, Bowdler's in love with Moll, and Moll comes in, and there's that sort of, I wouldn't say a bit of verse speaking occurs there. We'll move on. Moll doesn't tell him that she's actually quite keen on him. So this play hangs pretty much on this thing of, just talk to each other. The play would be shorter. Just basic communication skills would be fine. You don't have to go into this convention of being chaste. Just never mind. I do quite like the way Fiddle comes on and just says, "Oh yeah, the fuzz is after you." What? No, I'm only joking, mate. Just wanted to see if you went for your sword. So yeah, there's nice stuff there, and I said there's business there. Fiddle veers from being quite enjoyable to occasionally quite annoying, and I think there's a lot of work to be done with the playing there, but there are moments when it works very, very nicely. And of course, we get to the actual point, the actual plot point. It's like there's a lot of business, and then every so often, the plot pops in. And just, I've delivered. Have you done the handkerchief? Yes, I have. Oh, thanks. It's like that's almost the entire point of that second half of the scene. Is just for him to say that, and he's just like, no, other words have to get in the way. Thoughts in the room, Lynn?
Yeah, I realize it's so baked in, but I'm a little disappointed that we find Moll doing that act that that women have to do. I have to, I have to play hard to get in order to sort of whet his appetite and get him really into me. So I'm sure I've got my hooks in him before I finally relent. Her denial looks exactly like Phyllis's denial. They look the same. So how is a wooer to know when no means no, if no sometimes means yes? It's such a toxic game we play in our culture. So harmful. And so it's just sort of a real sore spot with me. So I'm a little disappointed to see that we have to play that game, because it's not a fun game. It's a really dangerous game. But that aside, and if we can get over that, this is really, there's a lot of charm here that everything's going to end up all right with Bowdler, because his debt will be forgiven, because he's going to be his creditor's son-in-law.
Bernard.
Oh, I
Bernard's
wonder
one
how
of the
that's right.
debtors.
Bernard's the debtor.
Yeah.
I don't.
And
It's
he's
so
not gonna be
complicated. I
anybody's
told you I
son.
needed a flow chart yesterday, and I didn't get one. So
Yeah, there are three of them. They all come in threes. This is the problem.
yeah. So yeah, I don't know what to do with the no means yes problem, but that's something we might want to think about.
Lois, then Aliki.
Yeah. Well, I'm disappointed that she wants Bowdler in the first place. I mean, I can't figure him out, actually. I mean, some of what he says makes him sound like the archetypal gull, who goes around courting other people's words and doesn't know what to do and keeps... And some of the time he's actually fairly witty, and some of the time he seems like a kind of rough roisterer type, getting drunk all the time and being generally useless. I don't know. It just seems to be combining a number of stereotypes rather unconvincingly.
There is a sense, I think, with a lot of these characters of not really quite knowing where the center of them lies. Whereas Frank feels very well drawn, and some of the others do as well. There is sometimes a sense of I'm not quite sure who some of these people actually are, and that's something that might come out. That's something where the actors have to sort of fill in some of the gaps and make some decisions to get us there. Aliki.
I'm jumping the gun and may regret saying this, but I wonder if Bowdler's conclusion there might be the moral of the story, or one of the stories, one of the morals. The natural fluence of my own wit hath been far better. Everybody's tried to court Phillis so far with one trick or another, and he's just tried to court Moll with somebody else's words, and he just, if they would just speak to each other decently.
Alexandra.
Just continuing on my theory of, I wonder whether there's an ulterior motive to the quoting of sort of contemporary works. There's a bit here that just goes, hey, you know that poem? Yeah, if we take this line out of context, it's actually hilarious. And yeah, so I'm feeling very supported in that idea. I wonder whether for a modern production, going back to, I think it was Lois's or Lynn's point, I wonder whether for a modern production there might be something in the performing of the distinction between how Moll reacts and how the other girl that only exists to be courted does, so that we can distinguish between this is a bunch of, because it's not just in the attitude of the men around them, right? There is a difference between how the other folks address Phillis, whom she rejects, and how Bowdler addresses Moll. But it's not about that. I think for a modern production it would be necessary to distinguish somehow to make it really clear the one is saying yes and the other one is saying no.
Lynn.
Yeah, I think that's a way around it. The other thing I'm thinking is that another thing I really love to make clear in production is what keeps people from finding happiness is the games that they play. When we first met Bowdler, he seemed to be just, mad about town. He's a Lothario. He just wants to get the girls. And then Cripple says to him in this scene, get her, win her, marry her. That's what you want, isn't it? And he's like, yeah, only I could. So all along, his intentions have been what we would call honorable. He genuinely loves her. He wants to marry her. He wants to make a life with her. But he has to pretend to be, a pickup artist, because that's the game. That's what he's always seen as successful. That's the models that he has. And he's not a pickup artist. He just loves her. So I think if in production you could make that clear, I think that would be really interesting, and I think a really useful social critique. It's the games that get in the way, that keep people from getting what they want. He has to pretend to be a pickup artist when really he's just in love. She has to play hard to get when really she actually likes him.
Well, I mean, it's also we talked about how this text is giving us people who are almost responding to rom-com conventions and just going, how does this work, this love thing? You have to do all the big romantic, you have to do this and you have to do this, and because that's what Frank was sort of talking about yesterday, of just going, oh, this is what you're supposed to do. And Frank doesn't know what love is. He's comes from he's this alien thing to him, so he's working from conventions and he's working from these ideas, and maybe that's actually what a lot of this play is about, is actually it is on some level satirizing all this, because they mention in passing, Fiddle mentions in passing, this, which Phillis is it? Well, it's not that Phillis, that same dainty lass that was beloved of Amintas, which is a text that was reasonably well known, just been translated a few years earlier than this, so it's out there, as well as all the various iterations that came from it, so it does feel like this text is in conversation with other plays, and is not uncritical, or other works, and he's not uncritical of them, and the idea of quoting out of context and subverting these ideas, that might be a really fruitful way of actually framing the show as a live thing today, because I think that's that's very valid today. Because people talk about in drama we tell lies to get to a greater truth. Sometimes we just tell lies because it's fun, and those lies become somehow true, and they become. People realize that they're not actually very fun in real life, and when you don't have music in the background telling you what the atmosphere of this real life is supposed to actually be like. And yes, no, the soundtrack behind your life, it's not a rom-com, it's a horror film. And yeah, that's the
It's
danger.
absurdist theater.
Yeah, that's the danger that we have. I've been rattling on. I apologize. I will go to final thoughts, however, because we're 2/3 of the way through the play. Alexandra, you've dived into this, but it's quite episodic, so I'm sure you've found lots to enjoy. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, just a lot of stuff echoing what you've just said, so I'm not going to repeat it. But yes, I think there is potential for something in this to be done nowadays. As far as I've seen of this play, it might go horribly wrong in the last third. We have a history of that. And I think even though there are we've identified those points where it sort of relies on recognition to get some laughs. I don't think it's the criticism can be leveled against it that we leveled against Satyromastics, where that's all it relies on. If you kind of look at one of these scenes and you go, yes, it's the classic whatever, and this is poking fun at romantic conventions or at rom-com style plot lines. If you recognize that stuff and you find that funny, great. But if you don't, it's quite nice for what it is. And if you didn't want to maybe put it on as a whole thing, I think there are scenes, even that we've done today, or sections of scenes that could just work as a single sketch, as a single little bit of fun. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it were by Heywood, that slight episodicness is his MO. I can understand why people would attribute it, the part of this text to him, because it does. There are elements where I'm going, yeah, that does fit within the logic of his dramaturgy. But that's not to say that is true, or for that matter, that it matters. Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I do. I am really intrigued and kind of excited by the potential of this story. Yesterday, I was thinking, I really hope Crutch ends up with Phillis, because that's what she wants, and I always want the women to get what they want. But today, I think, if she ends up changing her mind and going with Frank, there's something kind of satisfying about that. And I think you could, an actor, a production, could persuade us that Crutch is a confirmed bachelor. That's what he doesn't want to get married. Phillis is nice enough. She's beautiful. She's desirable. She's accomplished. I'm not denying that, but I don't want to get married. I don't want to get married. This is the life I choose. And so he gets to have choice and agency. And I think it's really, I think it's very healthy for a disabled character to do that, to say, no, I'm flattered by your attention, but I don't love you. Make another choice. If that can be persuasive, I think that would be very healthy. So I think, there might be, there's two possible, I think, good resolutions to that. So I'm really curious how that works out. And that the other thing I'm thinking is, I have this big old crush on The Night of the Burning Pestle, because I think it's such a pain to the usefulness of theater, how that theater can be really unifying and really healing. But the meta-ness of this text is working in, I think, another really important way, saying we have to be careful what stories we tell and how deeply we buy into that, because that can be problematic. It can keep us from getting what we want. It can keep us from talking to each other. We have to remember that these are just stories, that these are models of behavior that don't always work, that they are fiction. So yeah, I just think it's doing really, really interesting, and I think potentially very useful work.
Back to Alexandra.
I just wanted to add my initial thought to my final thought, because we were not recording when Rob was kind of giving us a very quick rundown of what's happened in the play so far for those of us who were not here before. And just the idea of having a positive representation, a heroic character who has a physical disability that I really hope it doesn't turn out in the end they were faking, and who is treated positively by the other characters, and who is, gone to for advice, and who has agency in other people's lives, are a lot of reasons to put this on right now.
Yes, there's always slightly worried whether he's going to turn out to be sort of the other direction, sort of magical, plot sorter outer type figure, which is also a bit of an issue. Aliki, any final thoughts?
I'm really enjoying the cleverness of it, the construction of it, and this romantic deconstruction that we were talking about. So I don't really have anything else to say.
Fair enough. Alan, any final thoughts?
Rom-com as a genre is not one that appeals to me anyway. And to a certain extent, from the one scene where I think Phillis has shown her true colours, which was her interaction with Ursula's shop boy, God help the poor schmuck that ends up being sentenced to matrimony with her.
Lois, any final thoughts?
I don't know. I think there's so many funny inconsistencies, and I can't make out if these could be due to collaboration. I can see why people think of Heywood. For one thing, it opens at Mile End, and Heywood seems to have had a thing about Mile End. There are a lot of scenes at Mile End in his plays. It became a kind of joke, I remember, when we were doing a play reading of Edward IV at one point. And I recognize a lot of interesting quotations, one of which I'm dying to point out, but can't at the moment.
Your time will come. Your time will come.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think, I'm not terribly happy about the way that Cripple agrees to help Frank by tricking his brothers, but then we don't have very much feeling for his brothers at this point, but he's also tricking Phillis in a way, and trying to kind of trick them both, and trick Phillis and his brothers to the point where Frank will get Phillis. It's a typical sort of comedy plot, but it doesn't. If Phillis finally discovers she loves Frank, it'll be okay, I suppose.
Elizabeth, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just briefly. I think that the play kind of came to life a bit more in this session. I feel like it kind of like it was snoozing, and then it kind of like woke up a bit. I love the singing, I love the songs, and I really like the exposition of the letters. I love the fact that the letters are read, and then there's an exposition afterwards of like, oh my goodness, blank. What is this blank that we see here? I think that some of the comedy tropes that they've employed here, like the porter disguise and the letters that go awry and the ones that are forged and then handed over to Phillis to see what she'll do, are quite nice comedy tropes. But then underneath it, there's this sort of like underlying layer of sort of a bit of misogyny and ableism that is a bit hard to swallow. And I think that it's making me, I want to laugh, but every time we say Cripple, I feel like I don't want to laugh, because it's like it jars with me. And I think there's some things about the play that kind of contradict the humor and contradict the comedic nature of the text. So I'm excited to see where it goes. I think that we can pretty much predict the ending, but the ableism and the sort of the underlying sort of misogyny stuff, I think kind of gets away in the middle, in the bit of like having a full belly laugh.
Briony, you, I think, along with many of us, were struggling a bit with it yesterday. How are you feeling about the play today?
I feel like it's landed now, and I kind of know what it is and what it's doing a lot more than I did at the end of yesterday's session. Yes, there's an awful lot of problematic stuff, and it's properly baked into this one, but it's stuff that would be really good to talk about. So I think if you delivered it in the right way and made it clear that this is, this is a look at historic material, we do not share the views expressed, etc., etc. I think it could open up some really interesting discussions about consent and then the whole the thing with cripple crutch, that whole discussion. I think there's a lot of valuable stuff here, and it's not like it could just be trimmed away, because what would be left?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Stephen, any final thoughts?
Well, no, not a lot to add. Everyone's pretty much said it. I was wondering about the extemporal reference, improv being my thing. In relation to, well, two things. One is the love plot, that the most worthy lovers are the ones who can extemporize, who can make things up on the spot. And in fact, it's a sign of a true courtier as well, because everybody learns this stuff. Everybody's got their phones out and they're looking for memes that they can pass off as their own, as it were. Whoever I think it was Lynn came up with that. It was such a brilliant way into the play. But also it's also to do with the way in which it's a critique of the people who can't extemporize, isn't it? The people who have these just sort of send letters. It's all kind of fully prepared. So there's a kind of, it's something to do with liveness. I think it's something to do with liveness and liveliness and the theatre. But of course, the people I've just been saying are kind of boring and can't extemporize get the most beautiful extemporization opportunities, because they've got to stand there while those letters are read out. They've got 2 minutes of reaction time where they can just make up sort of funny stuff on the spot, and that's the sort of thing, that's the sort of thing that I guess somebody, if it is Heywood's an actor, you build that in, and you just actually, the point is not so much what people are saying as the faces people are pulling when they're listening to this stuff.
Right. Well, that's it for this session. We've got one more session to finish. We'll see whether the curse of the final session will strike it all down. But it's quite episodic, so we can always just nick bits from it. So all that remains is to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. And this doesn't happen very often, but every so often we do get a chance to say to the author in the past,